Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? JW, thank you for the invitation, and APSF, thank you. This is my first time being here. Excited to be here. Fourth of four presenters, not a good place to be between you and the break. So I'll try to make this as quick and painless as possible. I'm here to talk maybe a sort of a different topic. I want to talk about wearables, more importantly, consumer grade and medical grade devices. And then the testing that we do at the ECRI lab, with the focus being on human factors and usability. That's going to be the essence of my talk. How many of you know ECRI, by the way? Just a show of hands. Thank you. This is not the response I get when I go and speak about ECRI, so I like this. Anyway, so we're a small organization, about 600 people. We are located in Pennsylvania. We're founded by Dr. Joe Noble, who's a critical care anesthesiologist. He was trying to resuscitate a baby, and 4 consecutive resuscitators failed. That's when ECRI started. He thought, why is a post-marketed device failing 3 to 4 consecutive times? So we started a lab which started testing devices. And we started sending alerts out to providers to ensure that people understand some of these equipments which are out there in the market may not function the way they're intended to. So that's how we started 50 years ago. We've evolved. We are the largest patient safety organization in the United States. We've collected over 6 million adverse events over the last 10 years. Our mission is very similar to APSF, which is we are striving to get to zero preventable harm. That's our mission as an organization. We are also an evidence-based practice center. Just to give you some stats, we have, over the last 3 years, evaluated about 256 devices. I'm going to talk about a few of them today. We have also, as I said earlier, collected about 6 million adverse events, and we glean data and insights from those adverse events to inform providers. So Lee talked about the fact that care is transitioning from an acute care setting to alternate care sites and home. There's a McKinsey article which came out recently, which talks about $250 billion was spent over the last 3 years, Medicare and Medicare Advantage, in treating patients at home. Projections are that in the next 5 years, there's going to be a 10% growth in terms of patients being treated at home. The next 10 years, about 10%. So this is real, this is happening, patients are transitioning. It drives unique challenges for us, which is how do we take care of patients at home without the level of scrutiny that we have in an acute care setting? So the challenges are sicker patients are transitioning to non-acute care settings, and the length of stay is decreasing in acute care. So we have to start to think about treating patients at home. Patients have to take care of themselves through caregivers with very minimal, if any, clinical supervision. It's reality. And then there is a ton of new devices coming out in the market, and we're going to talk about a few of them. They're not necessarily tested from a human factors and a usability angle. So we need to start thinking about user-centeredness for new devices. And then there's about health technology literacy at home, which is critical. So just to touch upon what is a medical grade device versus sort of a consumer device. Typically, a medical grade device, and Lee talked about it in the morning, class 1, class 2, class 3, it's regulated by the FDA. And essentially, FDA reviews for safety and efficacy, whether you go through a 510K process or a pre-market approval process. Consumer devices do not go through that process. There's also no obligation to follow quality standards for consumer devices. And then there's no collection of adverse events with consumer devices as compared to medical grade devices. Okay, I touched on this, but why should we apply human factors to healthcare? We always forget that at the end of the day, the patient is at the center of all what we do. And they are being influenced by different personnel treating them at the hospital. Now it's at the home. Processing procedures are different. The place is different. It's an acute care setting versus home. The different accessories are different. The products are different. There are many variables which are different. And for us, we need to start thinking human factors. 3 considerations. Who are the users? Where do the users work? And what kind of user interface? That forms the basis for human factors. So I just have a list of devices that we have tested, some of which I'm going to talk about. Really 3 categories. We call it identification or notification devices, which are, in this case, I've used the example of a baby vital signs monitor. Self-care or preventative health, like Fitbit or trackers. And then disease management, which is around cholesterol tests or blood glucose monitors. Okay, so just smartwatches. We tested 6 devices from 3 vendors: the Fitbit, the Android, and the Apple Watch. And my focus in this talk is primarily around usability and human factors. So I'm going to stay away from other areas. But the core functionality was sound. But what we found was fall detection, which is advertised by some of the devices. There was a problem with that, and it didn't work reliably. And then there is what is called passive AFib detection, which could cause problems when people are detecting passively AFib correctly or wrongly, when it's not meant to. But the most important usability issue that we saw was when consumers recorded EKG, it was difficult to actually find that EKG. Go and retrieve and find that EKG. And then the other piece was around sharing of this EKG with clinicians was not thought about in the context of the patient themselves. This second piece here is a baby vital signs monitor. It's a smart sock. We tested 2 devices from 2 vendors. These are not considered medical devices, did not require FDA pre-market review. Sorry, okay. There's a human factors problem here, by the way. So the vital signs monitor, the smart device, we tested 2 devices from 2 vendors. And what we identified was, first, is there a utility of this device? It's not very clear about the unmet need. The second piece is around, there was poor correlation of blood oxygen saturation with a medical grade pulse oximeter. This testing probably was not done before the product was launched. And then setting up Wi-Fi connectivity was a problem. With smartwatches, I talked about this, smartphone-enabled devices. This is measuring EKGs. In this case, what we found was screen resolution was a problem. So we couldn't actually read well from a device. And the small fonts actually created misreading and misinterpreting of results. And then finally, home cholesterol devices. What we detected was you could actually insert the strip in reverse fashion and still get a response, still get the answer. And the answer came out normal, by the way. So some of these consumer devices, we've tested from a human factor standpoint. We identified these issues. At the end of the day, we need to really start thinking about safety and efficacy, not just for medical grade devices, but also consumer devices, because they are being used right now. Not just for identification, but for diagnosis. Data access is important. And then technology needs to be easy to use. I'm just going to go to the summary. I've worked for product development companies for over 20 years. And human factors is really not considered a prerequisite prior to launching a product. That has to become a prerequisite. Human factors assessment, usability assessment has to be a prerequisite. You have to test for usability, not just for safety and efficacy, but also for effectiveness. And then we need to start thinking about reporting of safety events, not just for medical grade devices, but consumer grade devices. Thank you so much for your attention, and glad to take questions.